Welcome to Fire Engineering Training Minutes. I'm Nick Martin, and today we're going to talk about forcing the hinge side of an outward opening door. So, kind of talk about the scenario a little first here. The door that we have here for the scenario today is not really the type of door we would usually be doing this on, so bear with us a little. Usually where we would be finding these kind of doors is on commercial occupancies, typically on the rear of say, a strip mall or something like that. The hinge side is not usually what we go to first. Usually we're working on the lock side. So what we're talking about here is kind of usually a recovery. There's a variety of reasons we might not be successful on the lock side. There might be very tough locking mechanisms. There might be multiple locking mechanisms. We might have a commercially available or homemade drop bar configuration or whatever. But whatever we've done on our size up so far has led us to the hinge side, and we're going to pick up there. So the hinges we have here, these are residential hinges. And if we needed to, we'd take the pins out and that'd be no problem. On a commercial building, that's not going to be an option. Almost all the hinges that we're going to find installed on commercial occupancies these days are going to be set so that you can't remove the pin. And if you were able to remove the pin, a lot of them actually have a nub between the two leafs of the hinge that prevents you from pulling the door out, even if you were successful in removing that. So we're going to have to be forceful in how we address these. So our method is we're going to attack the top hinge and then the bottom hinge, and we're going to leave the middle hinge here for last. And the reason we're going to do that, if I were to go top, middle, bottom, now my partner and I are going to be down here putting force on the door, and it can actually happen that we're starting to pull that door out on us. And it may be fire conditions down there, and we certainly don't want that coming on us. So we're going to get the bottom first, and then the middle here will be in a better position to control the door if it were to start coming out at us. So the tools we're going to start out with this are going to be our basic irons. We got our Halligan and our axe, okay? So the first thing I'm going to start with is I'm going to batter the door right next to the hinge. So what I would do is I take my axe and I'm going to come in here 3, 4, 5 times. I kind of have to feel how it goes on that door. Some will be less, some will be more. But the important part there is I don't want to actually strike the hinge myself. If I strike the hinge myself, then what happens is I can damage the hinge to the point where some of our next steps are not going to be as successful. You'll see why in a moment. Now when I'm striking here, what I'm looking to do is to shear the screws. These kind of hinges have 3 to 4 screws from each leaf into the door. Those screws have a lot of resistance against being pulled out, but they have very poor shear resistance. So when I give this some good hard hits in there, what I'm looking to do is loosen that hinge up by shearing some of the screws that are holding it into the door. So once I've done that, the axe firefighter is going to do that. Once I've gotten that, I'll do it on all 3 hinges while I got the axe in my hand. And then I'm going to come up with my bar, and we're going to work on this top hinge first. Using the bevel up against the door, I'm going to slide my fork on there, kind of with a good little shot. Right, get it lodged on there. Now some guys will come and go to try and pull that out first. That generally doesn't work very well. What I found works really well is I'm going to work this bar from side to side. And when we get our crew in here and we have 2 people on it, we'll have one on each side. As one pulls, the other pushes, and vice versa, and we'll get some rocking going on here. And if you look here at the forks, you can see what's happening is, as for example, I push this way, the rotation of that fork is causing a downward shear force on the screws this way, while this is kind of putting an upward shear force on the screws that way. And we reverse that, we really loosen that thing up a lot. You can sometimes be very successful in pulling the hinge out with just that movement alone, but it definitely loosens things up a lot. So after we get some good rocking going on that, then we're going to move in and we're going to come under it and kind of do a bit of a squat to kind of come up and pull that hinge out. Now when you're doing this, this is one of those times that if you have the longer 54-inch Lincoln style Halligan bar, that can be a real advantage for the additional leverage. You know, inside a structure, a bar that long is not that useful, but again, remember most of the time we're going to be outside on the rear of a commercial occupancy with this kind of maneuver. So we're going to work that, we're going to bring that out. Once we get that top hinge defeated, we're going to move down to our bottom hinge. Same thing we can do here, okay? We can put that, we can slide that on there, we can work that side to side like we just did. When we get to the lower hinges, we have some additional options. So step 1 for me is still going to be my side to side. I have great success with that. But I also have the additional option, if I want to, I can place that on there And now I'm in a position where I can get my axe and I can give that some hits and I can drive that force down. That provides a downward shear force on the screws, and the fork actually also works kind of as a wedge, beginning to pull the cylinder of the hinge off of the door and kind of begins to pull that out. If that's working well for you and you begin to run out of leverage, as that hinge comes out, you can actually reset your leverage by flipping the bar around and putting the bevel out, and you'll be able to catch some additional leverage and eventually force down to bring that hinge out. And then we would come up and do our middle hinge. Again, I'm going to come on it from the top. I'm going to do my side to side. If I got some tall guys, you can actually get some strikes on there, depending on the height of your guys. We're going to pull that out, and once we have our 3 hinges defeated, one of 2 things is going to happen. In some scenarios, when I get that last hinge, that's actually going to bring the door with it. That's fine. In some scenarios, the hinges are going to be gone and the door is going to be in place, and if the door remains in place, then we'll just go ahead and get our bar set for our standard outward opening door forcible entry techniques, and we'll continue to force that side. So that's kind of how it's going to go. We'll see how it goes here live. We're going to bring some guys in and let's take a look. Okay, so we've sized up. We've decided we're going to go for the hinge side of this door. So we're going to come in. Our axe firefighter is going to batter the hinges, right? He's going to give them a couple good shots on both, starting at the high one, then he's going to give them at the low one and the middle one. Now on a tougher door, he'd be giving a lot more shots and a lot harder shots here, shearing those pins. Okay, so now once we've sheared some of those screws, our Halligan firefighter is going to come on. He's going to slip that fork on the underside there, right? And we're going to move in a side to side. On a real door, if this is giving us some tough work, we can get both guys on there doing a kind of push and pull. We're going to rock that thing side to side. Once it loosens up a little bit, then he's going to kind of turn around and squat that up and pull that hinge out. So give it a little more on the side to side. There we go, a little resistance. See, every time he pulls it out, he's able to shoot that fork on there a little more, and our top hinge is out, right? He can kind of tap that out with the fork, or he can have the axe firefighter come in and just kind of pull that thing out. But that thing's out of play. So let's get that hinge all the way off. See how you can slide the fork on there using the other side of the bevel to get more leverage. Give that a little twist and pull it off. Just rock that side to side a little more. There you go. All right, so now we're going to go to our bottom hinge next, right? Go some side to side on there too. And let's see that now we're in a lower spot. We can also, if you want, we can strike the top of that Halligan. Let's see how that can be used as a wedge. All right, we can see that begins to pull it out. Now we can bring that down towards the floor, pulling that hinge out. And see how we've run out of leverage there a little bit? If we need to, we can flip it around the other way. And we can work that side to side again to finish pulling that hinge off. Just rock it hard side to side. And once it's free of either the door side or the hinge side, then we're good. Now he's in a lower spot there too, so another option, you can take that Halligan off and you can strike it with the axe. Strike it with the back of the axe and drive that hinge down, and that'll bring it out for us. There we go. That's good. 1/2 is fine. Okay, so now we've got our middle hinge there, and we're going to go and attack our middle hinge, and we just want to be cautious here that if there was fire behind this door, we want to make sure we're doing this in a controlled manner so that we don't lose the door until we're ready. Side to side again. And then we can slip it on and come down. If we need to, we're probably at a height where we can drive it on there. There we go. Pull that thing down, and the door will come off. So this is one of those things where you kind of don't know what's going to happen at the end. It's either, like I said, it's either going to stay in place or it's going to come away. You know, that's what you got to be prepared for. If this is the fire area right behind us, we want to make sure that we're anticipating that this could happen. We've got proper control of it so we don't get overwhelmed. If this had stayed, then we would just keep a little hip on the door. We go right into our outward opening technique and finish the door off. So there's a couple different options there. There's a couple different ways you can attack every hinge because every door is a little different and you got to be prepared to adapt. So the hinge side is always a good option for us when the lock side isn't working out for us. So there's some techniques we can use to get through the outward opening door on the hinge side. Thanks for watching Fire Engineering Training Minutes. I'm Nick Martin.